Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Lydia with Raindrop Lila, and today I'm going to show you guys this journal that I made. This took a lot of time because of all the detailed sewing on the cover, and I also like to really embellish the journal also, so it has a lot going on the inside. A lot of you guys picked up the collection of textile for this journal, and I hope that this flip through inspires you in creating your own journal. And I'm going to try to kind of show you guys some ideas for how I use the different pieces in the journal. I use this wool piece as my cover, but then I actually added layering on here with the lace and the different pieces. And even here, the fabric, the wool was a little bit, the edge kind of turned up like this, so it was a little bit shorter on the top. So I took advantage of that to add some extra ruffles. And so I think that that looks really good now. That little detail, which might have originally seemed like a flaw, I think adds to the journal, because now I have like an extra bit of ruffle right here that kind of sticks out. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So I have the woven rose on the cover, but then I have a little mini one in here and on the inside, and I just attached it with a little ball pin. Okay, and then I have slow stitching on the inside. I have a lot of vintage fabrics, and I love that yellowing on there. Okay, and then I have these tags. These tags are a little bit thicker. They're pretty substantial. I kind of try different things. Sometimes I go with just cardstocks. This time I use like almost like a light chipboard for them. And so I like to change things up and try different things. Now these, they're really pretty as is. And on the back I added some journaling space. But if you wanted to, you can go a little bit further and embellish the tags even more by adding photos on here. But I think they're pretty just as they are also. I was also going to mention that I had a couple of you guys ask me how to use some of this register tape. I have a couple of these rolls in my Etsy shop, and I love using these in my journals. And so since I just picked some of these up, and they were on my desk, I decided to use them in my journal, and I will point out where I used them. So basically, I used them on the back like this. They're just perfect for tags and for basically adding just journaling space right over like the pattern paper. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. These get tucked in here. The whole journal is hand stitched. Okay, so this right here, I love this image, this vintage postcard. Isn't that just so beautiful? I have it layered with this vintage velvet, which I absolutely love. This is one of my favorite pieces of textiles. And then I have some embossed. This is like a gold cardboard, and it's vintage, and I embossed it. And I love how it kind of combines like the elegance of like the gold with the vintage or the worn vintage look of the cardboard. And I love that. I love it's almost like a contradiction, but it's just so beautiful the way it is. And then I use some of these brads on there. And then I also have some cardboard that I embossed as just kind of layered on the back. And this is actually a tuck spot. And then I have some lace here and some tulle underneath. And then this just comes out, and this is just a little notepad that I made. Again, I used this to make it. And this is a great little place to either make a list or add a little bit of journaling, like quotes or verses, or just to kind of write about your day. And that just tucks in there. Okay, so here, I'm going to pull this out. I added some lace. There's some fabric underneath also. I've been trying to use a lot of my fabrics in this journal, and it does actually bulk it up a bit, but I love it. I think it looks really pretty, and I love seeing it all full. Okay, and this is a tag that I made. Again, I added some of the register tape to the back. So it's just a perfect way to add journaling space on the back of your tags. You could just add it to even like a patterned paper in your journal. You just add it on there, and then you just have instant journaling space. You can also do that with coffee dyed paper, but I love that I feel like this is the perfect size, obviously, for the tags or for like smaller pieces. So I don't have to cut anything. I just tear it off and just add it to the tag, and it just makes things really easy. I was also going to mention that all the digitals I use, I will link them in my description box. So everything is right there for you guys. Aren't they so sweet? The two little girls. I love that so much. Okay, and basically that's just a little tuck spot. I have some lace here and some really pretty fabric. I love this fabric right here. I used it kind of throughout the journal also. I love the texture of it, and it's aging. I think it's so, so pretty. Okay, so I have another piece of that register tape. This is great, again, to just write on, and then you can just tuck it inside there. And this is a little journaling card. Okay, and then this is another little journaling card. I just tuck it in here. And then this is another one. Isn't that so pretty? I actually used a bunch of my vintage laces that I've been kind of hoarding for a while. I have a ruffle here, which I embroidered. I love this paper. Isn't that just so pretty? Okay, and here is a little, so basically this is just one of my printables, and I just folded it in 3. And then I have, this is from one of my, let's see, this background paper right here is from, and this one is from my Pretty Neutrals. And then these two are basically, let's see, postcards these are from this year, and I am almost ready to release them. So hopefully I'll have them ready in my Etsy shop. They weren't ready yet, so I kind of kept postponing, but I'll have them for you guys because aren't they so cute? I just love them so much. I think they're so great. And then I did some embroidery right there, and then I added some lace right there. Isn't that so pretty? It almost looks like it's a blanket. Okay, so I'm going to tuck that back in here. And I love this page also. Isn't this just so pretty? And then I found this in I like that the words are from a book page. I thought, okay, that's going to work really well here, I think. Then I used some of my vintage laces that I've been kind of holding on to. This is a fabric from my textile kit, and then this is a little bit of a doily. Now my textile kit sold out. I don't have any more of the collection that I used in this journal, but I always come out with new ones. So if you are interested in curated textile kits, I usually try to put some out every month, and they go pretty fast because I don't make that many. I can't physically make as many as I wish I could because they take a lot of work. I do a lot of sewing. In my premium collection, I make a lot of the ruffles with the embroidery. And so I can't always make a whole lot of them. But if you follow me here on YouTube and also on Etsy, you will be notified when I come out with a new collection or a new kit. And once I make a collection of textiles, I usually try to make a journal soon after or during. And I usually use those textiles in the journal. So I hope that that will inspire you guys in your work when you create a journal. It kind of gives you maybe some ideas of what you can do with the textile kit. Okay, so I did sell out of it, but I will hopefully have some more coming soon. Okay, so I did use a lot of the white doilies throughout this journal. I find that they are like a perfect embellishment, and they really feel like snow to me. So it feels like Christmas. I think that it has that feel to it, even though I use them in all my journals, but I especially love them for winter and Christmas journals. I think they look so pretty. Okay, there's some more tags again, and the back is perfect for some journaling. And then here's a music sheet. Isn't that so cool? I love it. I added this pom-pom trim. Isn't this so pretty? I was going to say, this right here is actually tissue paper. But isn't it perfect? I love the color. And I love the hearts. I think it's so pretty. And so I had to use it in my journal here. And isn't she so pretty? I love this postcard. Or actually, it's not a postcard. It's a cabinet card photo. And I used some of my vintage lace on here. I just think it works so perfect on here. Another thing that could be done with this image is it could be embroidered. And I'll show you guys. I have another one where I embroidered snow on it, but this would be perfect for that type of like embroidery on a photo. And actually I have a whole collection of winter photos and winter type of art images that are perfect for embroidering snow or even using paint to just kind of splatter over it. I think that would be really pretty. And then I have an embroidered ruffle. I made this little tag. Isn't this so cute? And I used some batting here for the snow. And then I have another one here. This is the other side of the tissue paper. I made this little envelope. What are they called? Little pockets. Heather with Ruby and Pearl has a tutorial on how to make these. And I thought it would be really great for this journal. I have this card in there and then this one too. Or postcard, that postcard. Okay, and it just tucks in there. And then here I have a pocket. And I made this piece. I added a bit of embossed paper on the back. And then I have this fabric. Isn't that so cool? This vintage fabric. And then I'm just tucking it in there. Okay, I had to test it to see if it's still focusing. Then I have this postcard. I worked on a bunch of different postcards this winter, and I love that one. That one's so cute. Okay, so here, I love this fabric. Let's see if I can show you guys. It starts on this signature, or on this page, right, in the signature. And I did it before I tied everything into the signature because, you know, I had to have it glued. So I glued it down here and here to form a pocket, and then I glued it down here. But I just love this. Isn't that so pretty with the roses? And again, I love the colors. They're just so perfect. And then I have one of these tags. I made these textile tags for the curated journal maker kits, and I just attached it here with the bullpen. I think it looks so pretty. And then I have these pieces in there. And they just get tucked in here. I love the tall pocket. I feel like it gives it, I feel like it looks really pretty because it's the fabric and the rose print. And it's a little bit unexpected because I usually do the shorter pockets. Okay, isn't that so cute? I love this. And again, I use some of my vintage laces. These are like my favorite pieces that I've been kind of hoarding. But they look so pretty with this that I just had to use them. Okay, and then I have this journaling card. Isn't this so pretty? And I use this little bit of sheer fabric. This also is vintage and it's very delicate. It tears so beautifully. I just love it. And I just added a little bit of piece and I tucked it underneath the card and I think it looks so pretty. It's just like a tiny little detail. And then I have a little bit of doily on there also. I have a book page. And this, oh, I added some lace there. And then you can see this yellowed fabric here. I just love this. This is that vintage fabric. Okay, so here I have this piece. And I actually have a tutorial on how to make these. These are so great because you can write on here. There's just plenty of room for writing or collaging or even adding your own photographs or even your own personal ephemera. Okay, and then again, I use this right here. Again, is the, oops. So this right here, again, is the vintage tape. And I have, I think I said that already. I have a few in my Etsy shop. I added a bit of lace just to kind of decorate the top of it. And then here I have a journaling card. Here's another tip that is really, really great. So I took 4 different tall journaling printables and I printed them, basically 4 per page. And it made them small like this, which is like a perfect journaling card size. So that's like a really great tip. I do that a lot, even though I resize my stuff anyways. And I do sell journaling cards also. Sometimes when I'm printing these sheets or I'm printing them just regular size, I will also print something smaller so I can use them like that. Okay, so this is also great for Happy Mail, or this would be actually really cute on a present, I'm thinking. Okay, so this right here is a pocket. I just love this. I love the way it looks. It's a little bit wrinkled up. This is kind of a heavier card craft paper. So it's almost like a thick cardstock. And I made a pocket out of it. And again, I used some of this really pretty vintage lace. I just ordered some laces and I will link the shop that I ordered them from in the description box below. Okay, here's another tag. And I backed it up with pretty neutrals. I have a collection with pretty neutrals where there's a lot of really pretty romantic roses. But then I have a winter style pretty neutrals. At least to me, it's a winter style where I have the papers like this and like this. So I have a couple different ones, but they all work so beautifully together and they're pretty neutral. They're not really Christmas or winter, but I feel like they worked really well with this cozy neutral journal for Christmas. Okay, I love this too. Isn't that just so pretty? Again, I use this. This is a vintage piece. It has a little bit of discoloration or staining. I'm not sure what that is, but I feel like it works so well in this journal because it's supposed to be vintage and old. And this is just a naturally old piece of, I don't know if it's linen or what, but I just love the texture of that. So it just was so fitting. Okay, I made this piece. I think it's so cute. This is the one I was talking about where I embroidered tiny little French knots all over it. And I also use this micro glaze on this one just to kind of protect the image. This is like a sealer, right? Okay, and so that's what I did on there. I used that, and then I also sewed the little French knots, and then I added the batting. I cut it down first, and then I peeled apart so that it's not too bulky. And I glued it on there. And isn't that just so pretty? I love, love it. And then I tied a bow at the top. I also have it layered. I got lace here. I have a music sheath and then some corrugated cardboard. And then this right here, underneath the label, is some of that vintage velvet, which I love so much. Okay. And then it opens up, and I love this print. I think it's just so pretty. And then I have a spot right there for journaling. And again, I used a doily right there. See that? I just love using the doilies. I feel like it's such a pretty touch. Oh, and then I have the little bells right here. Isn't that cute? I just attached the bells to a bull pin, and then that's how I attached it to the bulldog clip. And I love the way it dangles. Okay, on the other side, I have a little journaling card. I think it's so cute. And then I have this piece. This is a little vintage snowflake. I found it at a thrift shop, and I think it's just so pretty. I love the way it looks on there. It's yellowed. I think it's just old and it's a little bit yellowed, but I like that it's sparkly. Then I wrapped up this doily around a journaling page, and it has a verse right there. Okay. And then, okay, a book page. Isn't this so pretty? I love this background paper. Then I did some embroidery on here. I embroidered these tiny little roses. They're French knots, actually, but they're my little rosebuds. Okay, so here I have this art print. I just love that. Isn't that so pretty? And again, I used the doily on here, and then on here, and then I used some lace too. Again, I love this so much. This is perfect for journaling right here. And then I use this bit of this little vintage piece. Isn't that so pretty? And then I added the little snowflake on top. That's just a little sticker. Then this is a little flip. Flips up. Again, some journaling space. This right here is this. Again. Okay, and then I added some doily at the top. It just adds such pretty details, right? And then I added some lace right there. I have the little button card. I just added it right here. I think it's a really great focal point. But I also think that the floral design also adds to, it also helps so that the page isn't too boring, especially if you plan to do writing. I think that it's just so pretty to just write on here. And then your page is basically done because it's so pretty, right? I always think about how to embellish a page that I want to journal or just write on. But obviously, you can just add different pieces on here also, like, right? Or collaging on there also. This is great for journaling, like a little quote. These also right here, these pages are also great for journaling on because they're not too busy. And they're kind of light. And so you can technically journal over here, or you can also collage. Isn't that so cute? Okay, I have another art print. That gets tucked right there. There's a music sheet. I love this. So pretty. I really enjoyed working with the neutral palette. It's so nice. I love this too. I just kind of added different pieces, book page, and then the doily. And I wrinkled it up a little bit all around it. And I think it just adds so much to it. I added some lace here. And then I just stapled this piece to this vintage piece of, it's like wallpaper. I have some more pom-pom trim, and then we are at the end. Okay, so here's that vintage fabric, which I love so much. I think it's so great. Okay, and then the back pocket. I hand sewed all this lace, and then this piece. I love the texture of that. Okay, and then I included another little postcard. Isn't she so sweet? and then another tag, and then some embossed paper. Okay, and then I have these pieces I want to show you guys because I think these are great too. I think these are so pretty. Okay, let's just open this up. Okay, so here's, this piece is like a writing board. And so again, it's super sturdy and it's a great size. And this can actually just be tucked into a journal. And I left it fairly plain with just this vintage lace on the edge and the little cotton yarn. The little cotton bow on the edge. Okay, and now this, I love this so much, and it was such a fun little make. It's all tied up with this cotton yarn. And then this right here is actually tissue paper. So if you have tissue paper, you can make one of these too. What I did was I started with the tissue paper, and then I used this piece right here, which I printed on cardstock, and I glued it on the inside of the tissue paper. So I have the tissue paper which folds over, but I basically started with this. I glued this piece on the inside, and then I layered. Isn't that so pretty? I layered some fabric. I layered this piece, which is embossed, and then I added this piece. This is from my Starlight collection, and it has an oval frame. But then I actually cut this out, or I had this already cut out, and I liked the way it looked over it, and it just fit. So I layered it on top of this fabric, and then I just added some of this yarn. I really loved using all this yarn. This is all I have left. Oh my gosh. But I loved using it in my journal, and I thought it looked really unique and interesting. And then on the cover, I added just a book page. I have this piece, which is a vintage cardboard. It's gold on one side and just cardboard on the other. And I love that you can see it on the edges, the cardboard. I think it's so pretty. So I embossed it, and then I layered it under this beautiful little girl. And then I added again some of this vintage fabric, and I think it's so pretty. So I just did a bunch of layering, and there you have it. Isn't that so cute? Now you can tuck in like little notes in here or other cards, and then this could just be tied up. And that is it for this flip through. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys have ideas. I hope it inspires you guys to make a journal, and I hope that it gave you guys lots of ideas of what to add in a journal or what to create in a journal. This journal is available in my Etsy shop, and once it sells, I will just mark it sold in the description box, but for now it is available. I would love to hear what your favorite part of the journal is, and I'm going to pick one person to receive a freebie printable from my Etsy shop. Anyways, okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.